morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Jones. I'm honored to serve as the Vice Provost for UCF Connect here, the unit that houses, among other things, our Direct Connect to UCF program. We launched this program in 2004 with a consortium agreement with what we call the Central Florida Higher Education Consortium. In 2005, we launched Direct Connect to UCF under that brand, and since 2005, we've empowered 46,137 students to get their four-year degrees from the University of Central Florida. A couple points that my colleagues made, and by the way, I'm quite aware that I'm all that's standing between you and our student panelists. And every time we have these conferences, I understand that that's the big draw, is hearing from the students that we serve. So I am going to try to be brief, but a couple salient points that my colleagues made, I think. Dr. Howard talked about the lack of metrics. I can tell you I was recently at a Board of Governors meeting where President Sandy Shugart from Valencia College took on the Board of Governors rather directly about just this fact. I know that they're aware of some of that, but you know, when you again look collectively at the numbers of students that are served by these three universities as well as all the state college partners that we have, it's somewhat flabbergasting that we continue to focus down on those FTIC metrics the way we do. And as Dr. Whittaker this morning, our new president, stated, you know, we're going to do it for the right reasons. And I think that's extremely important that we continue to remind ourselves about that. It was also pointed out the significance of the president's position. You know, I'm very proud when Dale Whittaker stands up here and talks about the mission of access and the mission of changing lives and livelihoods through our transfer student mission. Because again, the state's not measuring that. I have the opportunity, by the way, to serve on the statewide 2+2 committee for the Board of Governors, and there's a lot of rich conversations that are going on around the state. But one of the things we need to do is continue to advocate politically for this group of students. So again, I join my colleagues in reinforcing that to all of you. Again, as was pointed out by Dr. Valdez, we conspired, I guess, ahead of time to say, you know, these mutual platitudes or self-administered platitudes about how great we are wonderful, and I hope we're not starting from a deficit position here. But, you know, I think we continue to challenge ourselves about what we do well, but what we need to do to really raise the bar. And so that's, I think, where we are right now. If you look at the statistics here, these are actually not as positive as we can spin them, to be honest with you. We have a lot of other ways to show these data that are much more complementary. But what we've done here at UCF, and these data show this, is we really recentered this from the standpoint, we take our FTICs when they're junior ready in this graph, and we're saying, okay, now what we're doing with our transfer students when they come in with 60 credit hours. So understand that most of that FTIC churn, if you will, happens in the first 2 years. Most of it in the first year. So we're kind of recentering this, saying, okay, what happens to these FTICs after 60 credit hours vis-a-vis our transfer students? And so you can see we've identified that we've got approximately a 20% gap in the first one and approximately 19, I think, in the second one. I think this is kind of a bold look at to challenge ourselves about how we present these data. As Dr. Whittaker pointed out this morning, we know that most of these transfer students come to us with a lot more experience, but also a lot more years under their belt, and most of them are still part-time students. So how we measure this is probably very important, and how we tell that message as well, I think. Some of the things we've done here at UCF, and I'll again try to be fairly brief about this, we entered into an agreement about 4 years ago with the John Gardner Institute for Excellence in Undergraduate Education. We took on the transfer student program, if you will. We were one of the first in the country to do this. We are the #1 transfer receiving institution in the United States. We receive 31% of all AA graduates from Florida State Colleges here at UCF. So it's a behemoth, to be honest with you. So what we did was we really wrote, which has now been rebranded as Transfer Alliance, but with the help of the Gardner Institute, we had a very broad-based conversation, over 300 participants, on what the transfer student at UCF encounters and what we can do to smooth those pathways. So we really have now a strategic plan that's aimed at transfer student success. And I think this in itself is pretty remarkable. It certainly isn't in conflict with our university's strategic plan, but as you can imagine, as we've already stated, our institutional strategic plan sort of, really drills down on FTIC success because, again, you measure what you're rewarded for, right? But this is an augmentation to that process so that we do have a transfer student strategic plan now. And I invite any of you to go online and look at it. I'm certainly not going to get into details with that right now, but you can find it on our website as the Transfer Alliance document. We've got an executive summary and a 35 or 40 page document as well. And second of all, we're moving very quickly into an era of success coaching. A couple of my colleagues in the room will be talking more about that this afternoon, but we understand, and through our training with extensive training in the last couple of years, we view coaching as relational. We view traditional academic advising, I'm going to say that very carefully because I don't want to insult anyone here that talks about academic advising, but it tends to be transactional. And one of the things we've learned is that with the implementation of a wide variety of technology that we're now all able to use, such as course planning, curriculum mapping, all of these different things, that the transactional part of this is becoming less and less important. And so students really want to be able to set with a coach and identify their goals and work towards their own empowerment on how to meet these benchmarks that they need to meet. And so we feel that the coaching model is an important transition here with the things that we're trying to accomplish. We have, at the University of Central Florida, we have 11 sites that are co-located with our state college partners. We used to call those regional campuses. As the face-to-face instruction mission has diminished, because remember that those campuses were promulgated from the standpoint that students were geographically constrained and were unable to attend Orlando. So they went to school in Daytona Beach or Ocala or Palm Bay. And the fact of the matter is we're now a mouse away from many of those things with our almost 80 online degrees. So what we're seeing is students who are increasingly taking online options if they're away from campus and decreasingly attending courses on the regional campuses. So we turn those into Connect Centers. They're all staffed. We do coaching at those locations. We've flattened our job descriptions. They used to be enrollment specialists and student service coordinators and direct connect advisors. Everyone is now a success coach. And with the accompanying training and professional development, we think we're in a pretty good place with that right now. I want to talk just a little bit about some incentives. We are actively looking at what kind of carrots we can present to students to help them do the right things. And by the right things, if we know that something is going to aid students being successful, then I think we owe it to them to help them understand that and to implement those techniques. So a couple of things we're talking about, and we've not yet done this. Again, these are sort of those gaps, these aspirations that we have. One is we should be able to lock in our catalog year. So when a student declares at the state college that they're in their first year as a psychology student, to use my colleagues' examples, that they're actually in the catalog year at that point. So what happens sometimes now is students matriculate to the university, and guess what? That catalog's changed, maybe even that summer. And the course has changed, and they're going to lose 2 or 3 credits. Can we lock them into their catalog year as soon as they declare with us? We think we can do that, and that's one of the things we're working toward, and I think our colleagues at FIU do that now. Ensure direct admission to limited enrollment programs. Again, Fuse does this, I know, in some ways with limited numbers of programs. Here at UCF, we guarantee every student receiving an AA from our state college direct connect partners, they will be admitted to the University of Central Florida. It is a guarantee, but does not guarantee that they're going to get into limited enrollment programs. And so these are internal discussions every bit as much as external. We have to, of course, convince our faculty and our leadership here that these are things that we want to work toward. Create jointly designed rigorous curriculum. This is one I'm very excited about. Let's and we're going to actually, Mary Beth Ehas and I, Vice President Ehas and I are working on an article right now that we hope to publish soon, but it's really about this transition. How we began with articulation agreements, as someone said this morning. We've gone to curriculum alignment, where we work very hard with our state college partners to try to make sure that when they're done with a 2,000 level course, they're prepared for the 3,000. So we've been doing curriculum alignment for over 10 years here, with limited results, frankly. We're not sure how well it works. We're trying to assess that. But what I'm really interested in now is, what do we do to co-design curricula, using design principles to set down and really, with our state college partner faculties at the table, and say, what does this new program look like? We're in early stage conversations of doing just that in a very rigorous curriculum. So when the students are admitted to that program at the state colleges, they know their entire four-year pathway. They won't have to apply to another program after 2 years. And it's going to be designed with rigor, and it will be co-designed, and I think we will get a lot better buy-in from our state college faculties in that. Leverage pre and meta majors. We all have to work on this and continue to work on this. What can we do to make those more meaningful? And finally, and this is one I'm particularly excited about, is how do we develop adaptive learning solutions across institutions? At UCF, we've been very, I guess I would call, aggressive in adapting adaptive learning technologies. We now have a 4-course mathematics sequence that will begin with point A and get you to point D, I guess. Not letter grades, by the way, we hope. But let's think about it. Traditionally, what we've done at the universities is we've been time constant, learning variable. In other words, we spend 15 weeks in the classroom, and what the student learns during that 15 weeks is up to them. The time is constant. The learning is variable. Adaptive learning flips that around. Time variable, learning constant. Everybody masters 90% of the curriculum if that's the benchmark that the faculty set. It might take one student 4 weeks to do that. It might take student number 2 24 weeks to do that. What can we do to push those techniques down to the state college partners? If we use that same math curriculum, that 4-semester math curriculum, and I use semesters with quote marks around it, could we be more helpful with getting these students to matriculate mathematically prepared? Just some of the ideas we're kicking around. I think it's important that we continue to look at ways to certainly raise student success and finally elevate our partnerships to a new level. In addition to our Direct Connect partnerships, we now have a secondary partnership initiative. We're calling it Transfer Connect. We have an additional 8 state college partners signed on with MOUs. The relationship that we're developing now with those additional state colleges is we will provide success coaching to those students while they're still enrolled in the state colleges in exchange for access to those students. In other words, we have to know who they are and their intent to matriculate to UCF in order for us to meaningfully do that work. And that's the trade-off that we're seeking. So this is where we're headed. I thank you very much for your time, and I particularly look forward to our conversation with our students. Thanks.